Every empire believes it will last forever. Rome thought its roads would stretch to the ends of time. Britain believed its navy would always rule the seas. America believes its dollar will remain the heartbeat of the world economy. But history tells a cruel truth. Every empire, no matter how powerful, follows the same predictable path. They all begin with hunger, discipline, and innovation. They all rise through hard work, trade, and expansion. And they all fall, not because of enemies or invasions, but because of the very wealth that once made them great. The same prosperity that builds an empire eventually corrupts it from within. Comfort replaces courage. Spending replaces saving. And pride replaces purpose. What begins as a story of creation slowly turns into a story of consumption until the empire collapses under its own success. So, what if I told you that every empire, from the Roman Republic to the British Empire to the United States today, has been running on the same hidden economic engine? A repeating wealth cycle that starts with productivity, peaks with prosperity, and ends with debt and decline. And what if this cycle isn't just about nations, but about human nature itself? Because what drives this pattern isn't politics or geography. It's psychology. The rise and fall of empires mirror the rise and fall of discipline within a society. When people work, save, and innovate, nations rise. When people borrow, spend, and speculate, nations crumble. And once this shift begins, no empire, no matter how mighty, has ever escaped it. From Rome's golden coins to Britain's pound sterling, from Spain's silver to America's dollar, history has written the same story in different currencies. At first, wealth is built through real productivity, mining, farming, manufacturing, innovation. Then, as wealth accumulates, people grow comfortable. The focus shifts from creation to consumption, from saving to spending, from making to managing. Credit replaces effort. Speculation replaces skill, and entitlement replaces gratitude. The empire still shines on the outside, with its towers, armies, and influence, but underneath, its foundation begins to rot. Inflation rises, inequality grows, and corruption spreads like a shadow over the very values that once made it great. And yet, we never seem to learn. Each generation looks back and says, "That won't happen to us." Rome's citizens said it. Britain's bankers said it. And now, Americans say it. But the cycle continues, because the cycle is human. We rise through struggle and discipline. We fall through comfort and greed. This is the unseen pattern that built and broke every empire. And unless we understand it, we're already living its final chapter. This is the story of the wealth cycle, the invisible law of history that has shaped every civilization, toppled every superpower, and now quietly threatens the modern world. A story written not in wars or politics, but in balance sheets and mindsets. Because wealth, in the end, is not just about money. It's about character. And when character fades, collapse begins. So today, let's uncover how the greatest empires on Earth, and perhaps the one we live in now, all follow the same path to greatness and to ruin. Every empire begins in struggle. Scarcity forces creativity, and necessity becomes the mother of innovation. In Rome's early days, farmers fought to survive harsh conditions, so they built irrigation systems, roads, and trade routes. In Britain, isolation pushed islanders to master shipbuilding and exploration. In America, the hunger for opportunity built factories, railroads, and a spirit of self-reliance. Scarcity demands effort, and effort creates value. When resources are limited, discipline is born. People learn to save, plan, and build rather than borrow. This phase, the productive era, is the foundation of every great civilization. Its citizens understand the link between work and reward, between patience and prosperity. The wealth that follows is real, tangible, and earned through sweat and innovation. But what begins as survival soon becomes success, and what starts as discipline eventually turns into comfort. And that's where the first invisible shift begins, when hard work becomes habit, and habit becomes complacency. Every empire's golden age starts with hunger, and ends the moment it feels full. Once the struggle fades, the empire starts to expand. Trade becomes the new weapon of power. Rome conquered territories to control markets. Spain sailed across oceans for gold and spices. Britain built colonies to feed its factories. America built global supply chains and financial systems that connected the world. Money begins to flow faster than ever. Credit fuels construction, innovation, and consumption. People who once worked to survive now work to grow, and the economy enters a powerful boom. Wages rise, trade flourishes, and optimism fills the air. The empire becomes a magnet for ambition and talent, but with expansion comes complexity. The system becomes too big to manage and too dependent on constant growth. Debt quietly replaces discipline. Borrowing seems harmless because profits appear endless. And while the streets glitter with success, the seeds of excess begin to take root. This is the empire's brightest moment, and its most dangerous one, because when everything looks unstoppable, that's usually when the fall begins. At the height of empire, confidence becomes arrogance. Rome believed its borders would never be broken. Britain believed its rule over the seas would last forever. America believes its dollar will always be the world's reserve currency. During this stage, the empire no longer questions itself. It celebrates itself. Luxury becomes normal. Wealth becomes culture. And success is measured not by productivity, but by prestige. The financial elite thrive while the working class begins to stagnate. The empire's growth shifts from real production to speculation. Money moves faster than goods. Banks expand credit. Governments promise prosperity without limits. The economy becomes a machine running on belief instead of value. It's an illusion of stability, a golden tower built on debt and optimism. And because everything still looks fine, no one notices the cracks forming underneath. History shows that every empire at its peak is already halfway through its decline. It just doesn't know it yet. The warning signs always start quietly. Prices rise faster than wages. Public debt climbs higher than ever before. People start to feel that their money doesn't go as far as it used to. Inflation creeps in, first as a whisper, then as a roar. Rome debased its silver coins. Spain's flood of gold from a new world caused prices to skyrocket. Britain printed money to fund endless wars. And in modern times, America prints trillions to support a lifestyle its productivity no longer sustains. The rich protect themselves with assets. The poor fall behind. Inequality widens. Social trust breaks down. Political polarization spreads. The empire that once felt united begins to split, not just by wealth, but by values. The pursuit of prosperity becomes a pursuit of survival. And when citizens start turning on each other instead of their leaders, decline is no longer a theory. It's a reality waiting to happen. In the next phase, the empire's cultural DNA begins to change. The generation that built the empire through work and sacrifice is replaced by one that inherits wealth without understanding its cost. Hard work becomes optional. The focus shifts from making things to managing them. Rome's soldiers became politicians. Britain's industrialists became financiers. America's innovators became influencers. Productivity slows, but lifestyles expand. Debt fills the gap between desire and discipline. The empire still enjoys prestige, but its people grow softer, distracted by comfort and entertainment. The culture of earn it turns into a culture of deserve it. And that shift, invisible but irreversible, drains a moral and economic strength that made the empire powerful in the first place. When citizens stop creating real value, the entire system starts to live off borrowed time. As productivity fades, governments step in to save the economy. Spending replaces strategy. Deficits grow year after year. Politicians promise prosperity through policies that simply postpone pain. Rome taxed its farmers into poverty. Britain mortgaged its empire to finance global wars. America issues endless debt to fund consumption rather than creation. But debt isn't wealth. It's just tomorrow's money spent today. The more an empire borrows, the more it depends on belief. And once that belief fades, once investors, citizens, or allies lose confidence, the empire faces a reckoning. Interest payments grow heavier than defense budgets. Debt service becomes more important than progress. The empire starts shrinking, not from invasion, but from insolvency. And no amount of printing or propaganda can hide the truth forever. Prosperity built on credit is prosperity borrowed from collapse. Every empire eventually reaches the same moment, the reckoning. Rome fell when its armies were unpaid and its currency worthless. Spain collapsed after repeated bankruptcies. Britain handed its empire to America after 2 world wars drained its economy. And America today faces its own version, a silent, internal decline powered by inflation, inequality, and political dysfunction. When faith in money fades, markets panic. When faith in leadership disappears, society fractures. The fall never happens overnight. It happens gradually, then suddenly. Empires don't fall from outside attacks. They crumble when their people lose faith in their own system. The fall is not just financial, it's moral. When corruption, debt, and delusion replace honesty, effort, and vision, collapse is inevitable. The empire that once seemed eternal becomes just another chapter in a long, repeating story. Yet, every ending in history has also been a new beginning. After Rome's fall came the Renaissance. After Britain's decline came the American age. Collapse clears corruption and resets the balance. When wealth concentration reaches its peak, when systems become too bloated to sustain themselves, nature steps in through crisis, reform, or revolution. The weak institutions fall, but the strong ideas survive. Innovation, discipline, and creativity return because necessity demands them again. The wealth cycle resets and a new empire begins its rise, built by those who learn from the previous one's mistakes. That's the beauty of the cycle. Destruction isn't the end. It's the cleansing that allows rebirth. But the question for our era is, will we collapse the hard way, or reset by choice before history does it for us? All the signs are here. Rising debt, falling productivity, widening inequality, social division, and a fading belief in hard work as a path to success. America has entered the later stages of the wealth cycle. The symptoms are not subtle. Record borrowing, political gridlock, currency inflation, and a society obsessed with consumption over creation. Like every empire before it, America still feels powerful, but its foundation is showing cracks. The dollar's global dominance is being challenged. Manufacturing has moved overseas. The middle class is shrinking. And yet, history shows that decline is not destiny. If a nation rediscovers discipline, productivity, and fairness, it can rewrite the cycle. But if it doesn't, then America's story may simply become the next chapter in humanity's greatest pattern, the wealth cycle that built and broke every empire. Empires don't die, they transform. The fall of a great nation isn't an explosion. It's an erosion. It happens slowly, quietly beneath the surface, as values shift and priorities fade. What once was built on sacrifice becomes sustained by shortcuts. What once required courage becomes maintained by comfort. And before anyone notices, the empire that conquered the world can no longer conquer itself. Yet history is not a tragedy. It's a teacher. The same wealth cycle that destroys empires also creates them. Collapse is never the end. It's the correction. It wipes away corruption, restores balance, and gives rise to new builders, dreamers, and innovators who understand what their ancestors forgot. That wealth is not a number in a bank account, but a reflection of discipline, character, and unity. Today, the world stands on the edge of another turning point. America, the latest in a long line of global powers, faces the same test that every empire before it has failed. Can it resist the comfort that comes with success? Can it remember the values that built its strength before debt and division tear them apart? The answer will define the next century. Because history doesn't choose its victims. It repeats its lessons. Those who learn from the cycle rise again. Those who ignore it become another cautionary tale. So when you look at the great civilizations that came before us, Rome, Spain, Britain, remember this. They didn't fall because they were weak. They fell because they forgot why they became strong. The wealth cycle never ends. It only begins again, waiting for the next nation, the next generation, to either repeat its mistakes or finally break them.